So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Inshallah, other people will join in. We have quite a few people that have signed up. Um, so, it's been almost 5 months that we've been dealing with the Gaza issue. And you figure like it would get a little less, or, the heaviness would be lightened, or you would feel, but honestly, emotions are so high, especially mine. I'll explain. For the first time in my life, I feel like being in this country, I feel like my rights were so violated. I felt like my, freedom of speech was violated. Like we couldn't talk about anything because we were scared we were going to be, kicked out of school, be fired. It just felt like for the first time that we were being, like we had a seal on our mouth, right? That was one thing. Another thing that was really important is the way everything was handled on social media. I think it was eye-opening that we need to do better because we have no presence in the places where it's really, really needed. Social media, media itself. I mean, how many people in media were fired, were, just kicked off because of, they had their own opinion. So I think our conversation today is really about how can we do better, okay? So faith and social justice is what we really wanted to talk about here. Mainly any faith, not only the Muslim faith, but any faith, because we saw across the country the protests that we went to, there were Muslims, but there were also lots of non-Muslims, right? It was not only us feeling this way, it was everybody, a lot of people feeling this way. So well, the first thing we want to talk about is how does your faith, our faith, influence our commitment to social justice? So I think this is a very important question for us to start with because a lot of us don't understand that. We don't know that. So anybody can chime in. Okay, this is a conversation. It's not a speech, a lecture. Anybody can join in at any time. Just raise your hand or just let me know you're ready to talk. So I'll go ahead and open for Noor, John, anybody who wants to talk about this first.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I did my undergraduate studies at Baylor University, which is a Christian university here in Texas. And I had always found faith to be important, but that's when I really started exploring what it means to live out your faith in a way that is impactful for others. Of course, that's something that we're all raised with, but to really grapple with that issue and see what you can do day to day really started there for me. And, I really did find, and I really do find that we stand up for justice every single day through discomfort and putting ourselves in areas of discomfort where we know that we can use our faith to elevate certain ideas, certain morals, and certain rights and basically fight for justice every single day through simply speaking out for others, speaking out in class if you're still in school when something is said that you don't agree with, but still being respectful and still representing Islam in the best light possible.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I've always, I guess, been taught that one of the core fundamental values in Islam is justice, right? And speaking truth to power. And as Sister Noor said, I think it's important that we do that in a way that is respectful and best reflects our deen, especially when we're dealing with the outside community, because there is so much false information about Islam and about the Muslim community that's been perpetrated over decades in media and politics. But I think it all kind of comes back to, I've always been told that the best form or one of the best forms of jihad, right, is to speak truth to the tyrant. And that is something that I think has been lost on a lot of people in our community. And I say that coming from white privilege, right? It's easy for me to stand up and speak out. I'm not an immigrant. I'm a white man with a white man's name. And so it's easier for me, but I think that it's time for our community. And I see it in a lot of younger people in our community who now are not afraid to stand up. And so I think it's important that we all get behind these movements and support our young people who are not ashamed and who are not afraid, and support them, because I believe that, that our youth, as I'm seeing them, our young lawyers, our young professionals, our young activists, they are the future. And I think it's time that we all get behind them now and support these movements, inshallah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. This is, you see that the whole, everything is being run by the youth, every protest, every initiative that comes across, because the youth are now saying, you know what, we don't want to go through what we've been going through the last 25 years, right? Okay, so what specific initiative or what strategies, honestly, can we really implement to make a change? Do we have any? Because it's kind of hard, right? Like, how do we actively get involved in social justice? I know Noor is great in that part, because, and I think honestly, you should do a class on that. I think we should. John is very active. Maria is active in it. We have quite a few people that are very active. But tell us, as the people who know nothing about it, how do we get involved?
Sister Nora?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know that we've talked about it a lot. Bibi and I have gone back and forth with it. I think that the first thing is really educating yourself on how things get done. A lot of times I've noticed that other communities have a really great grasp on who the representatives are, setting up meetings with them, going to chat with them, telling them what their concerns are in their communities in a way that is effective, and in a way that really puts forth the issue that they're fighting for. And so I think the first thing is knowing exactly how things get done. Who are your representatives? Where do you go to have these meetings, attending those meetings, really making your voice heard. And I think the second thing is attending those sort of events. Inshallah, this next legislative session here in Texas will have a Muslim Hill Day where we can really come together and learn about what that looks like on the ground, what it looks like to advocate. How do you advocate? What issues are important to our community? And the other thing is being confident in your abilities. I think a lot of times our community feels as if we don't know enough, or we don't have enough power to speak to our representatives or senators, but that's not true. There's so much that can be done through a simple conversation, and there's so many nuances to it as well. For example, you just can't email your Senator john.cornyn@senate.gov, because that's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to a spam box. So it's, subtle nuances like that, but inshallah, we can go into a little bit more of tips and tricks on another day on how to effectively create that conversation. But it really just starts with conversation, respectful conversation, and professional communication.
Yeah, I think a big thing, Noor, is educating the community, right? We need to start these conversations within our community and not just wait until when a crisis like Gaza happened for us to be scrambling. Oh my God, what should we be doing, right? So I think educating our community is so important. Anybody else have any suggestion about how we can bring awareness and educating the community on getting involved in social justice? Maria, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say something. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Maria. I think I love what Noor said. So we have to remember that our voice upsets the establishment, especially when it starts to hurt the bottom line. So when our boycotts are starting to affect the world's largest corporations, when our votes, take Michigan, for example, are turning from votes of support to uncommitted, they're noticing, right? So everything counts. And also there's not, what Sami Hamdi says is one thing that I always like, where there's not just one way to do something. There's many ways to do things, right? So pick one thing that speaks to you or seems like in this phase of your life you can do and run with that. So whether that be showing up at protests, whether that be using your social media platform, whether that be through charitable giving, right? It doesn't have to be that you're doing all of those things. Do one thing, but be persistent with it. And keep showing up, right? Like we have to have a seat at every table, because one thing that October 7th and onwards has shown me is that Muslims are not civically engaged enough. We assume and take things for granted. We assume that our rights will be upheld. And we're shocked when we are treated as second-class citizens, which in a lot of ways we have been in the last 5 months. So we have to have momentum that's consistent, right? Like being a voice for the voiceless is not a sprint, it's a marathon. If you're committed to social justice, you'll be doing many things for many, many years and not always seeing really cool, energetic kind of results that really, put you front and center and like feel like, yeah, I've done it. Sometimes it'll just be the drudge work of like showing up and trying to talk to that one person, changing hearts and minds, one person at a time. But I think that we've all kind of collectively seen why that is so important. So I think it would be pick one thing and do it well.
Excellent. That is excellent advice, because that's the whole thing. Sometimes we try to do it all and we do nothing, right? So I think that's excellent advice. And one thing, John, before I let you speak, I don't know if Salima is on the call here, but Salima is one of the people who is consistent. She is everywhere. She tries to do, she tries to get out and make sure she knows what's going on. I think that's what happens. We get very passionate the first week, the second week, and by the fourth week, we've already died down, right? But I think being consistent is what's making the change right now. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on what Mario was saying earlier, after these events that we've seen, after October 7th, and the kind of periodic tragedies that we see year after year in Palestine, you see these patterns, right, of the community becoming upset, getting out and protesting, and then it fades away. And I think that staying engaged consistently, right, over time, even though you feel like you're not accomplishing anything, it's just to keep speaking, keep getting out and doing things that are productive. There's a saying in the social justice movement, right, that you should make a friend before you need a friend. So that means getting out and engaging in coalitions with other people who are inclined likewise on certain issues, right? We don't have to agree with every community organization or every community about every issue, but when we have issues that intersect, we should be working together and making friends, showing up to their, we did a lot of work with CARE with Black Lives Matter, for example, before the George Floyd killing, right? And guess what? When we have our events, they come and they support us. And you see that in all sorts of different communities. And so getting out and engaging with other communities is very important from my perspective. That it's not been done enough in the Muslim community because of, our community is primarily, well, the people who are in power are primarily immigrants still, right? And they're very isolated. And so just getting out and staying involved, I think is hugely important. And investing into the future. We've let the other side of politics over the last 7-8 decades use their Orwellian propaganda, right? These false narratives to infiltrate the system to the point that now we can't even speak up against the policies, the governmental policies about Israel, without it fitting what's now an accepted definition. Most people don't realize that the definition of anti-Semitism that's used throughout the United States includes criticism of the state of Israel. And so, we've let this thing get so far out of hand, right? And just allowed it to be that even leaders in our own community are scared of their own shadow, right? They're afraid to say anything for fear of being called anti-Semitic. And so I think that we really need to take back a lot of these terms. We need to take back our own terms. That's why I try to bring up when I can some of our religious terms to take the fear out of them, right? I mean, why are we afraid to say jihad in public, right? It's outrageous. It's because we've let those people take our terms from us. And so it's just, there's a lot that we need to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. Asma, did you want to say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was driving on I-10 yesterday and I saw a huge billboard which says, pray for Israel. So I was like taken aback. The main problem is, okay, this is fine. We can do this, we can do that, we can talk, we can do all the things. But how can we overcome the fear? Because I have talked to people, generally, they don't want to even talk about it just because of the fear that, okay, we might be kicked out of the country, we might come in trouble. Like even in my family, my niece, she is doing a law and she is very much into it all the time. So she dragged her parents also into it. Yesterday also, they are in Chicago. But my other brothers and sisters, and they are like, oh no, we are the immigrants, we can't say or even show on the media.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
is
I
there
think,
any way? Yeah.
I think one of the big things, what John said right now, as soon as we push away the leaders we have today, the older aunties and uncles, and we let the young people, instead of us, even across America, I mean, Biden is like 199 years old. Why is he still trying to be president, right? I mean, even all of the people who try to get in these positions, whether it's within the Muslim community, outside the community, when we can get rid of them and have the young people with the young mindset come into play, I think then and only then we would make a change. Honestly, I've seen it across the community. Hold on, Maria. Let Noor, and then you're next. Go ahead, Noor.
Yeah, I think that is something that we hear a lot from the community, is this idea of fear. And that's something that I see as a big divide between some of the older members of our community and some of the younger members of our community, right? The younger members of our community, we have only primarily existed in a post 9/11 world. So we've never experienced a pre 9/11 world, right? And I think that one of the number one things that we can do as a community is to develop strength within ourselves, right? We cannot let fear control us. I think that's something that we really, really have to get behind. Speaking out, being countercultural is not something that's going to actively harm us. The political figures in our community can say whatever they want, but there is this real ability that when you find that strength within yourself, that you will be able to achieve whatever it is that you truly believe in. I think that that's something that Bibi and I have talked about quite a bit, is that the Muslim community as individuals, we each have to become stronger to realize that we do have a power within ourselves. And, fear is 100% reasonable and it's 100% valid, but there's a very real concern that as individuals within the Muslim community, we have to remind ourselves that we also have strength, and that strength can overcome that fear that we may have. There's fear of protests, of course, but, here in Austin, there was a stabbing a few weeks ago on campus where there was a hate crime here on campus, and that has not stopped any single one of the undergraduates or graduate students from doing what they have been doing. They're become even louder and more transparent with their beliefs. And I think by not backing down, you're really showing that strength, and that strength in numbers. So I think that, we all have fear within ourselves, but to remind ourselves that we also have that strength within us as well.
Yeah, that's a good. Maria, did you want to add something? Anybody else want to add? Please just raise your hand and jump in.
No, Noor, I completely agree with a lot of what you said. I think Biden recently said something that I liked, which is rare lately,
Wow.
but he did say that it's not about your age, it's about how new your ideas are. So I think that there is space here for the older and the younger guard to kind of, the old guard and the younger generation to kind of come together. And, you know, one of the things that I think we lack is having more conversations like this, or even in person kind of roundtable discussions where people share these fears. There's a lot of resources in our community that can help you if you have the fear of being profiled. CARE is on this call. I mean, they exist for this very reason. So if you have a fear that you're going to show up to a protest and have your financial livelihood affected by that, or your rights are going to be infringed upon, come and talk to the people who know about this sort of thing. Be prepared, be equipped. Don't let the fear hold you back.
Yeah, but here is the problem, Maria, with that, okay? Look at this community conversation. We have about 30, 35 people on, okay? If I made a community conversation, let's talk about chai or coffee, I would have 150 people on. You know what I mean? So what is important for our community talks a lot. We need this, we need that, we need, but where are you? So I think that's a big thing. So what the next question, which honestly is very serious, and I want everybody to really chime in on this. So for many years, we have always talked about interfaith, and then sometimes we said interfaith was dangerous, interfaith is great. We have mixed feelings about interfaith. I don't think ever we have felt like we were a part of interfaith than this incident with Gaza. I mean, Jewish People for Peace, so many people were out there with us, right? What are our thoughts right now about interfaith and bringing, the question actually is, how can Muslims collaborate with people from other faiths and backgrounds to work towards a common social justice goal? Okay, so okay, I'll go ahead. Salima, you can go first.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. It's thank you for adding me to this very important conversation. Bibi, having talking and understanding about what interfaith is for us as Muslims is very, very important. I feel like in some ways we have done enough interfaith, and in other ways we have fallen short. So it's not about reaching out to different faith groups and finding a way to work together. It's about identifying which organizations and which faith groups are willing to help you achieve your goals. So interfaith activities and civic engagement, together with organizations such as JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace, is great and wonderful, because our goals are the same: social justice for everyone, including Palestinians. And the important thing as far as Palestine advocacy goes is to identify which organizations and which people stand on principle against Zionism. As Umar Suleiman very bravely stated, that Zionism is Islamophobia. So, a lot of times with organizations like ADL and AJC and AMJAC, which is AGC with like Muslim members on there in AGC. They're not anti-Zionist. They're very pro-Israel. They're not fair. And I see a lot of them being overly involved with some of our community organizations, locally and nationally, with our leaders. And some of us have been aware of this problem for the past 10 years and have been trying to raise awareness and and warn people. And I think a lot of people recognize and realize it. But again, it's that fear of speaking up, asking tough questions, of our members that are involved in those sort of spaces,
Yeah.
that is allowing the continuation of this very dangerous sort of involvement with the, Zionists.
Okay,
And-
I'm gonna hold on there because I want to hear what John has to say about that, since
Mhm.
he's here.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, sis. So I agree with a lot of what Salima had to say. We do have to be very careful about our interfaith work, and not do it just to be doing interfaith work and to be taking photo ops. We need to carefully screen the people that we're working with to make sure that our interests do align. And we're not just getting out trying to grandstand to get a picture and so we can get, cuddle up with politicians. Salima is correct. We have community leaders that are way too close and embedded with the ADL, with the AJC. These are organizations, and they have a right to do this. This is America, and we have the same rights. But these organizations are organizations that are primarily focused on preserving the Israeli narrative and propagating all of this, unconditional, uncritical support for the state of Israel. And it's filtered down through the entire American atmosphere. I mean, everywhere you go, people automatically feel as if Israel is the victim here. It is somehow that the oppressed in Philistine and in Gaza are now the oppressors, right? And that's been done through this narrative that's come from these organizations that are here in the United States that are, some of our Muslim leaders are still validating by participating in their organizations. I was at a coalition, well, it wasn't a coalition, I was at an FBI meeting a couple of weeks ago as a representative for CARE. And in the room, we had some of our Muslim leaders stating about, oh, how we work with ADL. And it's almost as if they're trying. And so I think it's just we need to be very careful about, who we align with and how we do our interfaith, because there are a lot of Jewish people, Christian people, non-religious people that support, freedom and equality and justice. So we just need to be careful who we align with.
So how do we know, is there a list? Can we put together a list? Because honestly, like an organization like An-Nisa, right? We would never know, honestly, who is who until it might be too late, or anybody, any organization. So is there a way for us to kind of like, maybe as a community, put a list together? Is that possible? Anybody?
Yes, that is possible. I mean, it's very, like anything else, it takes very little work, right? If you were to Google ADL or AJC, you'll see immediately what it is. And so I'm often perplexed that we have people who are sophisticated, who have been involved in local politics for so long, who are still aligned with those groups. But yes, we should do that. I mean, CARE is always taken we do not work with ADL as a matter of principle, and they don't work with us. I mean, to be very honest, they say bad things about us all the time. So it's a mutual, but you know what, they have an agenda that's opposite of ours. And
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, Noor, did you want to say something on this?
I did. So this is a topic that's really important to me. Part of my degree in my undergraduate studies was in interfaith studies, actually civic interfaith studies. So what does it look like to bring faith communities together to achieve certain goals within the civic space? So whether that's advocacy at the local, state, or federal level, or whether it's policy work. And part of that is really offering grace. So I'd hope you guys will offer me some grace. through my interfaith study, something that I have found to be extremely important is to ensure, if you are someone who feels strong enough in your beliefs, to ensure that there's an avenue of communication that is open with those that we disagree with. And I know that this seems extremely counterintuitive, but I would like to explain it. The reason is because in past decades and generations, what we've seen, for example, in Bosnia, is that there have been a clear distinction between those who were perpetuating genocide and those who were the victims of genocide. And when those who were perpetuating the genocide were asked, why did you feel this way? What made you do this? They said, I have never met one of your people before. I have never spoken to one of your people before. So when I was told that you guys are the enemy, I felt strong enough about it. And I think that that is something that really brings to the forefront why interfaith communication is important and why civic interfaith communities and organizations are important. It's not so much as to support the ideas that they are currently perpetuating. I don't think that any one of us can sit here and condone some of the rhetoric that's coming out of some of these community groups. However, keeping that line of communication open so they know who the Muslim community is, so they know what our beliefs are, is extremely important. I have seen since October 7th, or actually, since I was a little kid, I've seen in Texas specifically, there's this clear delineation. We are the Muslim community and we're going to sit here in our silo and do our work in our community. And whatever's happening over there is none of our business. And what we see then is when something like, October 7th happens, we expect the rest of the Texas community show up and support us. But where are we when things happen to other communities? Where are we when churches are being desecrated in our state, where synagogues are being desecrated in our state? I can tell you that when, the Christchurch shooting happened in New Zealand, the Christian community, the Jewish community came out with an outpouring of support. And that's something that happened halfway across the world. But our community cannot find it within ourselves to reach out to the churches in our community that are being desecrated. And I think that that's something that's really important to create that. And sociologists call this the My Pal Al effect, where it's, statistically proven, scientifically proven that when we as people, as religious people with a strong religious identity, have a positive interaction with someone who's never met someone from our religious identity, it causes them to open up their worldview for future interactions with any religious identity. And this is the only identity that does that. Racial identity, nationality, nothing other than religious identity has this effect on people. So I'd like us to keep that in mind moving forward. To just keep that line of communication open and realize that we have a lasting effect where moving forward, we can prevent things from happening.
So
Can I say something in response?
Wait, hold on, Salim, hold on. I have an important thing to tell Noor though. Noor, a few years ago, there was a shooting, there was a church shooting where this crazy guy went in and killed so many people. I can't remember, John, where it was. So Amna and I came up with a plan that we were going to take some money, we were going to donate, we were going to ask them if they need counseling. We did all, and it was like, I don't know, 5-hour drive from where we live, okay? So I got my family, we all went, we gave them donations, we, Amna took Girl Scout cookies and signs, we're with you, all of this stuff. Guess what happened the next morning? The FBI came to our house. So the church was welcoming, right? That wasn't a problem. But we not only do the Muslims have that connection, but now we have another, we have that craziness that goes on afterwards. So a lot of people now are hesitant. Like now, after that happened, how many people want to go and put themselves in that situation?
Right, John? And I think that's what we have to keep in mind, is that there is always a risk with whatever we do as a Muslim community right now, that things are going to be taken the wrong way. I can tell you, even here in Austin, almost anything that I do within the legal field is taken in a wrong way. And I have to make the active effort to ensure people know what my intentions are, and
Yeah,
to
correct.
know what, and I don't think that that's something that should stop us. As long as we as community members can find that link with, you were saying the church members were so welcoming, and I'm sure they were so appreciative. And if higher powers that be may, shine down and may negate those positive efforts, I think that that's just something that we'll have to deal with, and we'll have to continue doing it and not shy away.
But it was only because we had CARE, and I know John, and we know CARE, but a lot of people on committee might not even know where to turn from. Salima, go ahead. I know you have a burning
Yes.
something to say.
I want to say, respond to, what Noor said. She made a lot of good points that I agree with, Noor. And I'm not sure if I'm, misunderstanding you, or if you misunderstood what I was trying to say about interfaith. Interfaith itself is not the problem. It's who you are interacting with. For example, like what Bibi did to go to a church, like her example, that's wonderful. It should be done. That's the right and correct and neighborly thing to do. And if it were a synagogue, that would be the correct and right thing to do, or, or a Hindu temple, or, a Sikh Gurdwara. The issue is, let me give you an example. Would we expect a Black church to, or members of the Black community to reach out and do interfaith with a Baptist church that is very that has a lot of KKK members? Would we have close relationships? Would they have close relationships with each other? No, they wouldn't. So for some of these organizations, within the Jewish community that are so rabidly pro-Zionist, like the ADL and the AJC, to have these really friendly and open,
Relationships.
relationships with them is counterproductive to the work of liberation and to the work of justice. There are alternative ways and alternative
So
organizations
that's why
to
we're going to make a list,
with the
Salima,
Jewish
because
community.
yeah, I agree, because we need to have a list of people that we should avoid, just for our own selves, right? Like, we should avoid these people. Okay, I'll let Maria go ahead. I know there's a whole bunch of people waiting to talk. Maria, go ahead.
I'll say a couple things really quickly. I'm loving everything all of you are saying. Noor, you had a really good point about the importance of interfaith work. And then John had that comment about having friends before you need friends. I dealt with this here in my community. I live in Bel Air, and we had, as some of you know, a couple of streets down from me put up IDF inflatable army tanks as Hanukkah decor on their front lawn. And it was a moment of crisis in our community because, first of all, most of us didn't know each other. So we were all angry in our own homes. And it was only when, it kind of started going viral and getting talked about on WhatsApp groups that everybody came together. The Muslims formed a WhatsApp group. We're now very strong. We were able to draft a letter and go to city council, share our concerns. But ultimately, it was a Muslim-led initiative that only had the support of other Muslims. What would have been a good thing is to have had other leaders in the community support us, because more than just Muslims are bothered by lawn decor that's designed to kill children, or is actively killing children right now. So, it was that moment I realized that I don't know the Christians and the Jewish and the Hindu neighbors in my neighborhood. And if I had, I would have had more allies when we went to city council.
Yeah.
And that was a shortcoming on my part as a community. There's a rabbi that lives a few streets away. We knew that, but we know none of us had a friendship enough with him to say, brother, do you think you could help explain to these neighbors who are reacting to us in a hostile way, but maybe they'll get through to somebody from their own community? We need those relationships.
Yeah, that's our shortcoming. That is actually a shortcoming, right? Not,
Exactly, it is.
you know, we are always in our own little bubble. We need to
Bubbles.
get out of those bubbles. That's the thing. Amna, did you want to say something?
Oh, assalamu alaikum. Sorry, I was just
Yes.
listening in. Yeah, I actually just wanted to talk about, Noor did make some good points, but I do also believe that the interfaith work has to be done with communities or with people that believe in our humanity. If they do not believe in our humanity, then how are we going into these synagogues? Most of the synagogues in Houston are Zionists. They are Zionist led. They are Zionists. They are run by the ADL. They are run by AJC. I've done a lot of interfaith work. I've been just like Bibi was saying, we went to that church. We took our Girl Scouts. We've done all of that. So I agree that we need to do interfaith work, but there's a time and place for interfaith work. Right now is not the time and place for interfaith work. Right now we have an ongoing genocide going on. We're not supposed to be knocking on people's doors and asking them, please give me some attention. Please, we want to do some interfaith work with you. But this is not the time. Like having, I'm going to be honest, having an interfaith soccer game or whatever kind of games that are going on, that's not appropriate in the midst of an ongoing genocide. There's a time and place for interfaith, and there's a time and place for justice. This is not the time to say, let's all be friends and sing the kumbaya, because I've done that for over 8 years. And I've gone into churches, I've gone into synagogues, and we tried to talk about our humanity, and they don't listen. So
yeah, but Amna, do you realize that our communities are communities of damage control? We're not communities of preventive measures. And at the minute we can jump out and say, you know, if we do instead of waiting for things to all break apart and then, you know, there's all this chaos, we need to start being a community of prevention. That's what we need
definitely.
to do.
And that's why making allies with people that believe in our humanity to begin with is what we need to be doing, like Jewish Voice for Peace. There's so many Methodist churches that believe in our humanity. They have to believe in our humanity before we can start asking them to be our friends. I mean, they're not our friends if they don't even allow us to talk at the table about Palestinian lives.
Right. Okay. So one important question that someone asked was, how can we encourage and empower the younger generation of Muslims to actively participate in social justice? I really think this is an important question. I hope some people have answers to this. I know that for me, I don't really have, you know, a lot of these answers, but somebody raise your hand who have an answer. Go ahead, An-Nisa hopes, and I think it's Safra Khan. Go ahead.
It is Zafar Khan. Okay, so I think going off of how we can empower the youth to become advocates is number one, we need to have the quote unquote aunties and uncles stop them from always just forcing them into the medical field, forcing them to become engineers. Like, we need lawyers, we need mental health professionals, we need people who can actually advocate for people when there are crises that comes up, right? And I think that, like, yes, interfaith is very important, and yes, you know, like, all of these community programs are important, but if they are being led, and I hate to say it, and I know this is gonna like raise eyebrows, but if they're being led from the boomer generation, people who have ideologies that are dating back 50, 60 years, we're not really going to get anywhere. So I think a main issue right now that's happening with our youth is that Gen Z is a very, very like, not only popular generation, but they're a very, very powerful generation. And the more we stop them, the more things are going to get chaotic. So I think instead of stopping them and putting all of these barriers around and all of this, like, what will people say about you? What will the community say about you? I think all of these things is just going to cause more chaos and be counterproductive. So I think empowering them to say, yeah, go ahead, become lawyers, become advocates, go get that political science degree, go into politics, do something different. The world is your oyster. I think then and only then will we truly be able to empower our youth.
Yeah, I agree. Sister Kaula, I know you've been waiting to say something. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam, Shabbat.
You know, the first thing about involve the community here, we supposed to involve volunteer, anything like be in the BTA board, you know, to be with the people, to be connect with the American people and the other people, to see you, to know you. You know, I am involved from the elementary school until now. I am with them, and my daughter they finished school, and still I am involved with them. And with this situation, you know, first thing when I do the Palestinian Film Festival, when I do the count there, you know, about Palestinian, they give me hard time.
Mm.
But still I did it because the people, Israeli people, the Jewish people, they tried to not let me do it. And they told me, you know, this is, you know, anywhere Palestinian in the map. I told them, what you talking about? And I will make meeting with the principal. And I told her, you know, if you will not do it, I will tell the CCISD, and I told them about this stuff, you know, and you will see the map is there. But the Jewish people and Israeli people, they take our land. How you feel about that when you took your land and you told this is my land? You need to go to the history and know this stuff.
Right.
And after
right.
that, you know, complaining about them and this stuff. And finally, I did it, you know, and I work in it. And now, you know, after the war start, they stop calling me about volunteer or something, and they be scared with me from me. They wanted to talk with me, and they put the police there and put the dogs and everything. And the people they want to talk about the politics, but you know they scared from me, you know. And I told her what you all told about, you know, and I discussed with them, and I told them, and you know, explained for them. And after that, they become happy with me and satisfied and try to make more relation with me. And these people, they know me like maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
There's nothing new, you know, for them.
Mm.
And
So-
alhamdulillah, you know, we still, you know, have the relation and they respect me and everything. For that, we need to be involved the community here.
Yeah.
And, you know, and
So,
to
Sister
let them
Carla, I
agree with
wanna,
your bank.
yeah, I want to jump
Yeah.
in for a minute for anybody who
Okay,
doesn't
just I want to
know.
tell you another point about, you know, the new generation. You know,
Okay.
for me, I have two daughters, and today we have event, the Palestinian American Bridge. My daughter, the two daughters, they're doing this stuff.
Mhm.
We pushed them to do it. Once she studied, you know, law school and law school, and she make this event. We told no, we need all the community to know about this stuff and the American people, and they push it. I know they have hard time to do this stuff, but you know, they still and encourage them, you know, to do this stuff.
Yeah. Good. Alhamdulillah for that. So for anybody who doesn't know Sister Khawla, she also has her family in Palestine, and she's very, very active and trying to help the situation there. Jana, I know you've been very,
and my husband, he went there 2 times.
yeah,
And he tried to go there, you know, to help them with the first doctor they went to the Gaza.
Yeah.
He went there.
Yeah, excellent.
And
John, go
help
ahead.
them,
You
you know.
needed to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on what Sister Safra was saying earlier. Is I think that there's a real tendency in the Muslim community that our older, established, as she said, uncles, have really kind of stagnated in their relationships with people who are in positions of power. And so I think we really need to encourage our youth to lead, and we need to support them when they're taking you know, those roles. You know, as an example, you know, we've seen this movement all over the country and in Houston about you know, no ceasefire, no iftar is a great example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, our Palestinian youth and activists have been demanding that our elected officials take a position on the ceasefire. And if they don't support ceasefire, that we shouldn't be inviting them to our iftars. We've been, you know, it's been going on in Houston with our mayor. And as they lead that movement, as they go to city council and activate the community, all of a sudden the uncles start coming back saying, no, don't raise any waves, you know. so I think that we really need to let our youth and movements like when we're dealing with Gaza, we need to let our Palestinian brothers and sisters lead as well and support them instead of everyone always having to be out front and in the limelight and acting as if they know the answers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. Sadaf, did you had something to say?
I was
think-
I was gonna say the same thing that John just said. That's exactly what I also believe in. That, you know, I feel like our older generation doesn't let go of power. And so they're not allowing the youth to come up, even in our Muslim organizations. So then how will they have the confidence to come up and, you know, to take that lead in social justice, which they are doing, but they're doing it out of, like, you know, there's no unity in the sense that bringing everybody along and all of that stuff, which is so important because we've just wanted to stay and maintain our positions of power, whatever organization there is. There's no youth-led Muslim organization that's, you know, that's that we're supporting or that we're a part of. All the organizations, Muslim organizations, are being led by uncles with, as John said, like, you know, they have a different, you know, mindset. And I also agree with what Noor said about people, like the genocide in Bosnia and everything that happened. Like, people, when they don't know us, it's so they will not understand us, and so it's easy to become the enemy. And when we live in our silos, and like Maria said, like, she didn't know her Christian neighbors or her Jewish neighbors, and we've started to do that. Like, I make sure that, you know, I know every single neighbor, whether it's Christian, whether they're Jewish, and we all have, you know, we're all there for each other. We support each other. And if everybody does that, then it'll be harder for people to make us the enemy. And they would support us, whether it's for Palestine or for what. Right now, we're all united because of this cause. But there's so many causes in which we're not united as Muslims. We are so divided, and that's why we're not powerful. The Jewish community is so united, and that's why they are where they are.
Agree. Iman, I know you've been waiting for a long time. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, baby.
Walaikum salam.
I actually agree with what Amina and Safra said. So one way to actually resolve this issue of stress, we're under so much stress. So I encourage the youth to do more IG lives to appeal, like today's meeting. It could be also done through Instagram live. So you can invite everybody to talk about their stress as a way to relieve the stress, and also to feel empowered and a sense of unity. Because right now, if you do the Zoom, you're not inviting people from Instagram, for example, to join in, because they're not aware of your meetings. So the youth can do that, actually. And for example, I've seen what Amina has been posting, and Dr. Hamdan and me as well. We use this outlet to actually relieve our stress and also overwhelm the system as well. So this is something that the youth can do, inshallah.
I agree. I think that one thing that we need to address, honestly, we did one conversation on mental health about Gaza, right? And I think it was very important. And now that we're going into Ramadan, I feel like we also need to do another one, because I'm telling you, it is so hypocritical. I feel so bad to be a part in this country that last month the president was trying to, you know, just I unconditionally support whatever Israel does. And today they're dropping food to the people after you've destroyed the city. You've murdered 30,000 people. Everybody is gone. And now you feel like, okay, to make myself feel good, I'm going to drop food. And this is so hard for me to, especially for us at An-Nisa. This is a very, very hard thing for me to come to terms with. I can't stop thinking about it. I'm like nonstop thinking about it. Okay. All right. So guys, we have about 5 minutes. Farzana, you go ahead. And then Fiza, you're next. Farzana?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. I just had a quick question for John. I know you said that the youth are, trying to send a message and say, okay, no more iftars. But is
isn't that going to cause, like, they don't care. So if they don't come to our iftars or our masjids, so I mean, how do we counter that and fill that void? I mean, out of sight, out of mind. They're going to be like, okay, you're not inviting us, we don't care, so we are isolating ourselves again.
So I understand what you're saying, sis, and I guess the political reality is that what we are attempting to do in movements like this is to encourage people that support us to come, right? So like the city of Houston event, for example, we have, I think, 5 city council members who have taken a ceasefire position and have agreed that what's going on in Gaza is a humanitarian crisis and that no innocent children should be, men, women, or children should be killed in this manner. When we have a mayor who's leading the city who's not taking that position and who's taking positions to the contrary, when as a elected senator, allowing him to come to one of our largest events sends the wrong message, from my view, because it gives him a voucher, right? So that he is getting a voucher from the leadership of the community that he is someone that they can trust, because a lot of people are not educated about, the background of these different politicians and whatnot. So I think, to the contrary, I think what it does is it actually empowers our community, right? It brings us together to say, this conduct is intolerable, and we're not going to allow you to come out into our spaces and act as if you're, friendly to our community when you're taking positions that are contrary to humanity. So I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying before. It's kind of shedding the old way of doing things and just getting along to get along, but rather to use our resources and to use our collective power to demand accountability. And I think that empowers the community.
Yeah. And I think, honestly and truly, I just think we need to stop this double standards that we have for ourselves, not for anybody else, but for ourselves. This mayor iftar, for the amount of things the mayor has done to the Muslims, I don't think there should have even been a discussion. We should all have stood up united and say, okay, guess what? This is not going to happen. This should have been done. But why do we have to double guess ourselves all the time? Oh, we're going to make money. We're not going to. At this point, who cares? We care about the life of the people that are being murdered, that they're starving, right? Those are the people we care about right now. Okay, Fissa, did you have something to say? Or I think you put your hand down.
I'm multitasking. I'm driving also, so
okay.
I just wanted to kind of, I don't know if you guys talked about that, what happened in that school with the slides. Me being an educator, did you guys talk about that earlier?
Not yet, no.
Okay. So that was something, since I'm in the education field, I was kind of like, okay, how did this even happen? Because a lot of the times we are given so much diversity training and we're supposed to treat everybody in the same way, and I know it doesn't happen a lot, it doesn't happen with everybody, but I want whoever's in there, please make sure that you go and you make a lot of noise with the up there people, like the superintendent. Everybody needs to hear that. Fort Bend being the largest Muslim community, in Houston, I think they have so many Muslims, that how can this happen and it's just brushed under the rug? You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree.
So I think we need to say something, and we also need to work on having something that we can outreach to the public schools and maybe have them, hey, can we come in and do a diversity training for your teachers? Because obviously they're clueless about Muslim people, and they're serving so many of them in your county.
Yeah. John, is CARE involved in that issue? Because that is a big issue.
Yes, we've been working with the families, and we've also been reaching out directly to Fort Bend ISD. And it's all they will respond at this point is that teacher is no longer working with Fort Bend ISD. Wow. Apparently, the slide was generated by the teacher, but we are demanding accountability from the district, and we're doing just as the sister suggested. We are demanding that there be training on this topic, but it doesn't happen again.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so two more. I have two people that we want, Fatma and then Ibrahim, and then we'll close it out because already 12. So Fatma, quickly, go ahead.
Assalamualaikum. I just want to talk to sister what Fazana said about iftar happening at the mayor's level. I want to give some couple of small suggestions. We're always trying to go for the big fish in the sea, right? We don't have to do that. Each of us can make an impact in your own neighborhood and in your societies. For example, in my family, we always go to the libraries. So every time Ramadan comes, they know, my librarians know, hey, Ramadan's coming, what can you do for you? Because over the years, we've made impact in the smaller circles we are, which is much more impactful than trying to, do a big political kind of an event. So that's my point. To Sister Farzana's question, to say, hey, are we, what's going to happen? We may be forgotten. No, if you're making every one of us, if we make small impacts, that's much more effectful in the long run, opposed to, trying to do like a political event or things like that.
Yeah,
No, I agree. Thank you so much. I just asked that question just to clarify, because I know there are a lot of people who are wondering. And, we don't always understand, but yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, Ibrahim, go ahead.
Hi, assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum assalam.
I was thinking about this for a minute. I just want to quickly loop back around to the point about how we need to empower the youth and my generation, so to speak, about us speaking up. I feel like a big issue, which was also sort of mentioned, was that how the older generation doesn't give up power. But I feel like a part of that is also that our generation's always told oh yeah, you should constantly try to be out in the community. But then when we try to be, we're constantly told oh yeah, no, one day you'll grow up, you should get this degree and then make this change. But then we're kind of told that right now we can't do anything almost. And I feel like that's the big issue, is that we're told oh yeah, let's go out and do something. But then as soon as we try to, we're told oh, you're not at that level where you can do something yet. And I feel like that's a big issue that isn't really addressed among just our generation.
Yeah, I love that. And I need to hook you up with Noor, because if there's any powerful youth that I know of, it's her. She's going to be president, I don't know, somewhere down the line. But I told her, you're going to be the first woman and Muslim president of the United States. She's amazing, mashallah. And I think that's why I want to work with her to empower the youth. So you guys have the tools you need to advocate, to become activists, to, to defend yourself when you need to in our community. Okay, guys, so it's 12:03. Jazakallah khair for this. This turned out to be such an amazing discussion. We have so many things we need to discuss in our community, and I think every month we'll have the conversations. If you think of any topic that you want to talk about that's really a burning topic, please shoot it in an email to us. And inshallah, we'll accommodate whatever we can. But thank you for this amazing discussion. Let's use some of the things we've talked about. Maybe I'll go in and put the main points in, and then we share it with each other. And inshallah, let's use it to actually not just talk about it, but use it to make a change, inshallah. Thank you, everyone. Jazakallah khair, and inshallah, we'll see each other soon. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.